House Democrats now unveil a sweeping new bill. They want to fund a very deep dive, a thorough investigation into the January 6th Capitol Hill riots. Now, for a long time, I was somebody who was supporting this, right? As soon as this happened, I said, where did this go wrong? How is it possible that in our nation's capital, we have, I don't know, 10, 20 different alphabet agencies that are responsible for securing our homeland, for making sure that this stuff doesn't happen? They all dropped the ball, every single one of them, on a very important day when they were going to be counting the electoral votes back on January 6th. So the idea that every single one of them, that there was a systemic failure from department to department, was kind of baffling. How could our government be so incompetent? I mean, I know they're incompetent, but that incompetent that every single person dropped the ball. Metro PD, Capitol Hill Police, Sergeant at Arms for both houses, National Guards, we have the FBI, all these people, DHS, all these different agencies, allegedly warning us that this was going to happen, and then they all failed. So that's great. So when I was sort of excited about the investigation that may or may not have been happening back when we were analyzing this right after January 6th, I was excited to find out where the investigation would lead in terms of government failure. Are we going to find who was responsible for this massive boondoggle, for the catastrophic failure across the board? Are we going to go find some names? Was it the Capitol Hill chief of police? Was it some FBI, U.S. attorney, some Department of Justice official? Was it the National Guard people? We don't know, right? Is there anybody responsible for this? Who made the decision? Or if it's multiple people, we should know that, because this was a catastrophic problem. This was, regardless of politics, the fact that the Capitol building could be breached when everybody is inside of it is embarrassing for the entire country, and in particular for our intelligence apparatus and for all of our law enforcement agencies that are supposed to prevent against this from happening. Secret Service and everybody. I mean, the prestige of all of these agencies just went down like 10 points, in my humble opinion, for it. And there should be repercussions for it. We should get to the bottom of it. But is that what this is going to do? Is this investigation going to be focused on those questions or giving us answers on those issues? Or is this going to be something that we are going to just, spend $1.9 billion to blame Donald Trump and every single person who voted for Donald Trump, whether they were there or not, whether they supported the Capitol Hill protest or not, whether they supported the riots or not, whether they were actually in the building or not? Everybody's just been lumped into this thing, even people who are not Trump supporters. If you're a libertarian now suddenly, according to former CIA Director John Brennan, you're somebody who is of concern. You could theoretically be a danger to this country, given your anti-government views. So we're seeing a lot of this sentiment bubble up, and it is concerning. So now we now know that the Democrats, sure, we're going to investigate this, they say. Let's see what it looks like. So this first article comes over from Politico.com, and we're going to see, written here by Nicholas Wu, Sarah Ferris, says that they unveiled a long-awaited details on the Congress's response to the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. They want billions to address security flaws that were exposed by the siege, and they want a bipartisan September 11 style commission to investigate the root of the attack. So is it going to be the root of the attack, or is it going to be the root of the failure? Okay, because those are very different questions. We have the House Appropriations Chair, Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut. She released a $1.9 billion emergency funding bill. $1.9 billion. Do you know what that is? I mean, do you know how big of a resource that is? Many police departments, their budgets are like $1 billion, right? And for, tens of thousands of employees for the year. So do they need that to investigate what happened here? Really? All right, I guess so. Here she says that it's complex. They want to authorize funding for also future security needs, such as a retractable fence system, among other provisions. The needs are urgent, so it is imperative we swiftly pass this legislation to protect the Capitol and those who work and visit here. The bill would set aside $200 million for a quick reaction force to assist the Capitol Police, which will receive body cameras for the first time. So that's great. So our federal police over there at the Capitol, on Capitol Hill, they don't even have body cameras. Nice. The bill also includes millions of dollars for mental health assistance and overtime for Capitol Police force, long understaffed and still reeling from the deaths of several officers in the aftermath of the insurrection. Okay. Sicknick died of natural causes, if I'm not mistaken. One officer, Howard Libengood, died by suicide in the days after the attack, and the bill would rename the Capitol Police Wellness Center for him. So, yeah, I mean, look, the Capitol Hill Police certainly are reeling. They've had 2 deaths this year, right? One by suicide, terrible. One by a natural death, Brian Sicknick, both terrible. And I think that this was the first sort of end of watch for Capitol Hill Police in quite some time, and they had 2 this year. So certainly, sympathetic to them, and we'll see if the investigation uncovers any problems within their department amongst any others. Theoretically, they should also be a part of the inquiry, right? Lawmakers are also moving ahead with a bipartisan commission to investigate the events leading up to the attack. So there it is. The plan has the backing of the GOP's top negotiator on the issue, though not House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who is still arguing that the panel's scope should expand beyond the January 6th attack. So we're going to have a lot of this back and forth, and it sounds like there is some agreement, actually, that this may in fact move forward. So it'll be very curious to see what the structure looks like and where the monies are going. And so we're going to take a look at that. Let's finish this article. It says the 2 major developments cap an intense week in the House. They ripped apart unhealed wounds from the Capitol siege. So dramatic. Certain Republicans have downplayed the insurrection in public comments. All right. It's imperative that we seek the truth of what happened on January 6th with an independent bipartisan commission to examine and report the facts, causes, and security relating to the terrorist mob attack, says Nancy Pelosi. So the bill is going to establish the January 6th commission. It could come to the floor as soon as next week, noting that the panel is modeled after a bipartisan study of events leading up to the September 11th attacks. Democrats are powering ahead with their response. Meanwhile, McCarthy said Friday he had not formally signed off on the commission agreement. The deal between the House Homeland Security Committee chair and others include some concessions. In changes sought by Republicans, they proposed a 10-person commission, including an even split between members chosen by Republicans and Democrats. So 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats on a commission. Ensures that the members of the commission can only issue subpoenas in a bipartisan manner. Commission is only able to issue subpoenas through a majority vote, so would need one from the party to cross over at least, or by an agreement between its chairs. Democrats can choose the chair. Its report will be due by the end of the year. McCarthy and other Republicans wanted the commission to investigate left-wing violence, but its focus is only going to be on the January 6th attack. So they're going to be, battling out the formalities here about what the commission looks like. 5-person makeup, 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats. You got to have a majority vote. So one from either side has to cross over in order to issue a subpoena. It looks like actually this thing may in fact happen. GOP leader told reporters this morning that he hadn't seen details of the agreement. Says, I know Nancy Pelosi played politics with this for a number of months. You got to look at the buildup and what's been going on after. In a statement, Catco says that unfortunately the Capitol remains a target of extremists of all ideologies, as we witnessed. That's why we must do something to ensure nothing like this can ever happen again. Democrats can still proceed without McCarthy's explicit backing, as several other House Republicans, including those who voted for impeachment, are expected to back it on the floor. Who could that be? Inaction or just moving on is simply not an option, Thompson said. Democrats will also be able to pass the security funding bill even if they don't secure any support from Republicans. Could be tricky. Before the bill was released, some Democrats raised concerns with the components of the bill. Pelosi first announced plans for the commission in February, and now they're just talking about the scope. So it's a lot of money, right? $1.9 billion to investigate the prior, what happened here, and then also to provide for some funding for the future. It sounds like $200 million will then be applied for sort of a quick reactionary force to come back out the next time this happens. I guess they're expecting it to happen again. So let's take a look at what the summary says so that we can tease out where the money's going, because that's a lot of money. It's basically like a full-time massive police force that they're just going to stack on there for some time. It says here, House Committee on Appropriations. This is the chair. Her name is Rosa DeLauro. Apparently she's from Connecticut. So she drafted this emergency security supplemental to respond to January 6th. And so this is a summary of the bill. And I want to just point out how big this bill is. I mean, it's a big bill. We're going to go through the summary of it, but the rest of the bill obviously is more robust than this. So it is intending to respond to the January 6th, address the insurrection. We already know $1.9 billion. We're acting on the recommendations of all these people. So Task Force 1 through 6, Capitol Security Review, all retired general, long overdue recognition of the work of the Capitol Police. Got all that. Responding to the insurrection. So the National Guard, they want $520 million, $521 really, for unanticipated pay and operations costs, which they should be compensated for that. I would imagine that they would. They put them in the Capitol building, sleeping on cots and sleeping on the floors, and they threw them in the parking lot before anybody sort of raised a stink about it, because were they really there for security, or were they there for the political spectacle? You can be the judge of that. DC, the District of Columbia, Emergency Planning and Security Fund, so another $67 million for them. Going to be reimbursement for the insurrection. Capitol Police, another $44 million. You like how they do this? See, they round it down. You know how you go to the grocery store, it's like $9.99, right? You don't want to pay $10, $9.99. Oh, that's reasonable. It's less than $10. They're doing that here with these billions. Check this out. You've got $520.9 billion, not 521 million. Sorry, it's millions. Not 521 million, 520.9. Oh, that's a bargain, sweetie. Let's get 2 of those. Okay, great. So, 31.1 million for salaries to backfill overtime. Another 3.32 million for the intelligence division for human and technical resources. Another 5 million, including what's this for? Gas mask, tactical vest, body armor, other equipment. $900,000 for cell phone capability. And so part of this, I think, is really just so the Democrats have a receipt so that they can go back and say, at the next election in 2022, they can say the that damage, it cost $1.9 billion. We know it didn't. I mean, they were in and out of the building by that night, and they had all the Congress people were back in. Everybody was back. They were counting the votes by like 8 p.m. that night, and we had a president selected by I think like 2 a.m. that night. So not even a big deal. It was like a 12-hour delay in the processing. All right, that's fine. But now they want to come back and say, oh no, it was $1.9 billion. Look what you made us do. We had to literally build a second army with gas masks and tactical vests and $100,000 for legal services. And we also have wellness and trauma support, including 6 new mental health counselors. Look at that. 6 new mental health counselors for all of the trauma that these maniacs caused. We also have the architect of the Capitol. So we got $40 million to backfill accounts that were used by the architect to pay for costs directly related to the January 6th insurrection. So they cost $40 million? Wow, that's a lot. Funding is in response to a request from the architect of the Capitol. Are they going to put any upgrades in there? I wonder if Congress is going to cram in any upgrades as a result of this. Prosecution support. So the prosecution needs this, obviously, because they can't prosecute crimes out of the D.C. Federal agencies there, the U.S. Attorney's Office, because they need delays. They need 60-day delays, and they're just overwhelmed with a few extra couple hundred cases there. So they need another $40 million in order to hire some more lawyers to squeeze that through. They need prosecution support to process the hundreds of prosecutions of perpetrators. All right, so like how many is that? So $40 million divided by 400, let's say, prosecutions, 40 million. Okay. That's a lot of money per prosecution. The Library of Congress now is also going to be 113 million. Or 13 million. Then we have the FBI, another 5 million for them. So that costs them 5 million to respond. Bureau of Prisons, 1.8 million. ATF is going to get another million. National Park Service, 1 million. U.S. Marshals, 1 million. And then what else do we have? That's a lot of money going out, just being doled out as a result of those insurrectionists. The architect of the Capitol, so future Capitol security, another $250 for that to address future needs. Let's see, window and door hardening, $162 million for that. Well, so they're going to upgrade the accessible windows and doors, so they basically have to turn that into a bunker. Kind of surprised that wasn't already a thing. You would imagine that the Capitol building that houses the Senate, the House of Representatives, the Vice President, the President comes over there. They would have hardened doors, but I guess not. Security screening vestibules. We've got $100 million for screening vestibules. We got cameras, $17 million to install new cameras. Quick reaction force, $200 million for them. House Sergeant at Arms, the person who is a catastrophic failure, is going to get another $21.5 million. We also have Capitol Police, also a catastrophic failure. They're going to get another $18 million, so that's great. We have the Judicial Security, $157 million to address security threats to federal judges. So, all right, so a bunch of people who weren't even involved in this are now going to get beefed up security. So the judges are going to get that, almost $160 million. 160 million would be too much, but 157.5, that's a smoking deal. That's a discount. It's like a Groupon deal. The National Park Service, $7.6 million. U.S. Secret Service also failed, $6.8 million. The General Services Administration also failed, another $5 million for them. We have the architect of the Capitol. What is this? Another $99.6 million for reimbursements and other costs of the response to COVID-19. What the hell does that have to do with the Capitol? COVID-19? enhanced cleaning, personal protective equipment, telework equipment. This is for, all right, we have House of Representative expenses, so they're going to give themselves a bunch of money. For what? For reimbursements and other costs for the response of COVID-19. So this is now it's becoming a COVID bill. Look at this. COVID here. We have another COVID here, another COVID bill here, another COVID bill here. Death gratuities. What's this? We have for the families of late Representatives Ron Wright, Alcee Hastings. Death gratuities are consistent with congressional tradition. So about $400,000 for that. A lot of money. A lot of money. You never let a crisis or a problem or a issue go to waste. And they're taking full advantage of that here. Turns into a COVID bill along with, new cameras, new gear, new money for everything. Everybody's getting new stuff. So it's good. It's good. It's good to be a congressperson. You get attacked and you just go on a spending spree, get the credit card out, go hog wild, and the Republicans will just support it because what are they doing anyways? And let's take a look at some of this analysis here. So as I mentioned, I was excited about, 3 months ago about an investigation because I would like to get to the bottom of it. This doesn't look like anything resembling an actual investigation. I can basically tell you what they're going to come up with. It's going to be a bunch of white supremacists and anti-government people, probably more libertarians, these DVEs, whatever, that are all going to be lumped into this Trump category. It's the same people we've already seen what they're doing. So not going to be much of a surprise there. But this is why it's problematic now when you form a commission with that end in mind. Is it going to be an independent commission or is this going to be a political commission? And are the Republicans going to really care that it goes one way or the other? Is this really about getting to the bottom of what caused the Capitol Hill riots? Or is this about just sort of twisting the knife in the back of Donald Trump and the Donald Trump supporters? Anybody who is sort of in that camp is now going to have to sit through this commission, listen to the whole thing. And I know a lot of people on the other side are going to be saying, you should sit through it because you supported that maniac. That's fine if you want to say that. But there's a whole contingent of the country doesn't support anything that happened at the Capitol building, doesn't support anything that was involved with the riots, doesn't condone any of that behavior. I'm one of those people. I don't condone any of it. But at the same time, I believe in due process. I believe in the presumption of innocence. And I believe that an investigation should be had to find out where the government failed as much as anything else, as much as what caused the underlying incident in the first place. Okay, that's important. But just as important is the government failure, which is my point. And if we have a commission that is not equally investigating both sides, well, then it's just a political investigation, a political commission that is now going to just kind of slam dunk all day long, every opportunity they can on one particular political demographic in this country. And the Republicans are not going to support that demographic because the last thing that they want is Donald Trump to run again. So if they can keep the pressure and the focus on this incident, remember how this is all working. The January 6th incident was caused, remember, because he was impeached for this, by Donald Trump, by his language. And it was festering because Donald Trump is a white supremacist based on a lot of these other outstanding issues that we saw throughout the last 4 years. The Fine People hoax and all of these other allegations that he's a racist. Bubbles into white supremacy, bubbles into the Capitol Hill riot as a result of his speech that particular day. And by extension, anybody who supported Donald Trump was in part responsible for that. It's guilt by association times 75 million. And the last thing that the establishment Republicans want coming into 2022 and 2024 is a powerful Donald Trump. So if the Republicans can agree with the Democrats here and set up a commission where all day they can just explore together, oh, Donald Trump, oh, he did that, oh, his supporters did that, for the next 60 days, well, that's great, right? It serves both their interests. Republicans are happy about it because Donald Trump is weakened and the Republicans who are currently in power still are slowly aligning against him. They're making a record against him and his constituents. So it is effective for them. And so we'll see if it ends up going that way. That's my interpretation of it. Let's see what Technofog has to say. He calls this article, he posted this over at Substack. And by the way, his Substack's great. I would encourage you to go check that out. He posted this article, says the corrupted 1-6 Commission, says also known as the Democrat 2022 re-election campaign. He says today, House Democrats unveiled their bill to establish a national commission to investigate the January 6th attack. We previously warned about this their roadmap to use their investigative authority to further their political goals, right? Something I've been screaming about here. We advise that Democrats make the investigation broad enough to subpoena records from conservative groups and websites and their investors. We warn that they would seek donor lists and personal communications from those having little to do with the events on January 6th. The Democrats' bill, which elevates the January 6th, quote, riot to a, quote, domestic terrorist attack on the Capitol, proves this right. Bill establishes a commission of 10 members, 5 appointed by Democrats, 5 by Republicans. It will be chaired by a Democrat nominee. He clips out a portion of the bill. Says the commission will have the powers to issue subpoenas requiring the attendance and the testimony of witnesses and the production of evidence relating to any matter which the commission is empowered to investigate. Here's where it says that. Commission may issue subpoenas requiring the attendance and testimony, production of evidence. Got it. From the bill. Domestic terror is the name of the title. We have here, from the language, we look to what the commission is, quote, empowered to investigate. Power is extremely broad, he says. This is where the trouble lies. It includes the power, the facts and causes relating to the January 6th domestic terror attack upon the United States complex. See how that they switched that language? You see how that happened there? The influencing factors that fomented such an American representative, such attack on American representative democracy while engaging in constitutional process. So it goes from being a riot to now the, in quotes from the bill, to a domestic terrorist attack. Pretty easy. Kind of a quick swap. Didn't even notice, like a magician. Now you see it, now you don't. It was a riot. It was an insurrection. Now it's domestic terrorism. It's a domestic terrorist attack from their bill. What? All right. The influencing factors that fomented those are also subject to their power. The influencing factors that fomented this. The dangerous part of all of this, says Techno, is that all the subpoena power is limited to the imagination of the Democratic appointees. We assume the likelihood that at least one Republican member of the committee will go along with anything the Democrats want, giving them a majority for the subpoena. So that's the danger. We also note that the commission is given the power to obtain information from the, quote, intelligence community to further its investigation. So the commission may secure directly from any federal department or agency information, including the underlying information that may be in possession of the intelligence community necessary to function. Massive power for this commission. Massive. So Techno wraps up his article. He says, we cannot strongly stress enough the danger of such power. House Democrats who have leaked false intelligence to the press, lied to the public about the Carter Page FISA applications, will have access via their appointees to raw intelligence data. And so if you haven't been following Techno, he's done a lot of work on the Carter Page, the FISA stuff, all of the Michael Flynn, all of the Russia collusion hoax. He's been doing a deep dive on it, and he is quite observant about what's going on. All this just proves the commission will be their instrument to inflict massive political harm on the right. Remember Pelosi's occupation of the Capitol? And so Techno said, and I said this earlier too, he said back on March 5th, if you question the seriousness of the game they're playing, just look at the security around the Capitol. Currently, over 5,000 National Guard troops, along with fencing and razor wire, protect against a non-existent threat. The occupation is theater to make January 6th more than what it was to justify what is to come. Okay, it's this long extension of it. We're going to take that one bad incident and we are going to wring out every single ounce of political momentum that we can. Anybody who said was even remotely connected to Donald Trump, if you even said his name, in favor any moment in your life, you're connected to this thing. And they're going to try to make that stick as long as they can and squeeze all the mileage that is possible out of it. And I want to give you one example of this, right? Here is one example of this from Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams is now out there saying that what is happening here in Arizona regarding our recounts, she's calling that a continuation of the insurrection. And you're thinking, what? Arizona's like 3,000 miles away. What are you talking about? We're just counting some ballots here. Or we're not even counting them. We're just sort of checking them to make sure that they're all legitimate. It's an audit. It's not a big deal. What's the problem? What's the problem with looking? I don't know. But she's saying that this is an extension of the insurrection. Oh my goodness. That was such a big deal. That was like a national tragedy that day. And what's happening in Arizona is an extension of that? All right. She says here, Stacey Abrams, the recount is a continuation of the insurrection. This article comes over from Breitbart. Says a failed Georgia Democrat gubernatorial candidate, Stacey Abrams, said Thursday on Anderson Cooper that the recount was a continuation of the insurrection. Cooper asked her first on the news, given all your work with voting rights, when you see the so-called audit in Arizona with cell phone jammers and UV lights, what conspiracy theories about bamboo ballots brought in from Asia? What's happening there? She says it's a continuation of a big lie. We have the clip next, so let's just go ahead and watch this one.
Representative Abrams, I want to ask you about your new book in a moment, but just first on the news, given all your work on voting rights, when you see this so-called audit in Arizona with cell phone jammers and UV lights and conspiracy theories about bamboo ballots brought in from Asia, what is happening there?
It's a continuation of the big lie, but more importantly and more concerningly, it's a continuation of the insurrection, of this attempt to disenfranchise voters and to dismiss the legitimacy of our elections. And we know that this is only part of a larger intention. Just today, there was leaked audio from Heritage Action for America, where they admitted that this is model legislation being promulgated across the country through a vast Republican intention of limiting access to the right to vote because they think it's the best way to win. And according to the leaked audio, they've been meeting with secretaries of state, with governors, with legislators, all with the intent of putting forward legislation that will restrict access to the right to vote and make it easier for Republicans to win. And we should all be concerned because our elections are not about partisanship. It should not be a question of Republicans or Democrats gaming the system, but everyone being able to participate and make their own choices.
What's so kind of Orwellian about all this is at the same time this is happening, Kevin McCarthy is saying that no one is contesting the legitimacy of the last election, which is exactly what they're doing.
Well, they're not only is there this hypocrisy, but it's gaslighting. They are saying aloud that there's nothing wrong, and at the exact same time, they're pushing forward legislation to fix something they say is broken. Either they're lying then, or they were lying then, or they're lying now. And the reality is, the lie that continues to weave its way through our democracy is one that turns this issue of partisanship, this naked partisan grab, it distracts us from the fact that this is about citizenship. Who has the right to vote in our nation, and should that vote be impeded because someone doesn't like the choice you're going to make?
I want to.
Oh, wow. All right. So very interesting clip there. Now, I could go off on that for about 2 days. We're not going to do that in this segment. Let's jump into some questions. First and foremost, though, I just want to say that it's not an insurrection. The audit is not an insurrection. Let's just leave it at that. All right. So let's go to our questions over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. First and foremost comes from Want to Know, says, Rob, if they investigate this, there are a lot of Facebook vids at the Capitol that got deleted off people's phone, news organizations too. Most vids came back up from cam cards. What about vids showing everyone standing around like waiting on a bus after she was shot to death? Fence stopped. Further disturbances so government didn't get overthrown. Pelosi can guard Capitol adequately to keep her safe. Only thing that matters. So I'm not sure about some of those other videos or what happened there, but I imagine that there is a lot of evidence that's out there. I know the FBI is going through a lot of it. Thank you for the comment. We have Jaskow says, this investigation has all the hallmarks of a setup for massive government overreach, like the Gulf of Tonkin, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Explain how the NSA or CIA hasn't been able to identify Q with all their billions of dollars in their budgets. Yeah, that's a good question. Right? Maybe they're involved in it. I don't know. I don't know about the Q stuff or why that just kind of went away. Kind of feels like that was the biggest problem in the country, and then it kind of shifted into this white supremacy thing now, and now they're going to spend $1.9 billion arming up and making sure that the investigation is very, very aggressive in every direction. We have Chairman of the Board says, I don't understand the $1.9 billion for an investigation, but I do very much support an investigation. We have some that took the protest, for lack of a better word, too far, and others seem to be being waved in and welcomed by security personnel. Something doesn't smell right, just doesn't make sense. I think we need answers. I also think it's unacceptable to lump everyone together who happened to be there that day, which is being done currently. Totally agree with you on that, Chairman. Good comment. And I agree with you that there should be an investigation. And I mean this, I really do want an investigation. I hope this thing is fruitful. I hope that this is not just a political inquisition into one particular party, but I really do hope that we get call everybody in there, right? Call every single person who is in the chain of command, who is even remotely connected to security and installing security and making sure that everything went off without a hook that day. They all should be questioned, and we should have a very extensive inquiry here, because I would like to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if there was any malfeasance here, if there was anybody who was just like, well, you know, if they get in there, that's not so bad for us. That's not so bad for our side. You know, if Donald Trump supporters are seen storming the Capitol, maybe that's a pretty big win for the opposition party. And if there's any malfeasance or any hint of that, I want to make sure that is rooted out. We have Liberty or Death in the House says, I thought they wanted to defund the police. Oh gosh, good point. I didn't even think of that. That's brilliant. I thought they wanted to defund the police. Weird how they don't mean the federal police forces. I am sure there is no ulterior motive here. Nothing to worry about. Brilliant. Brilliant there, Liberty. Love that. Yeah, a lot of money. $200 million, new masks, gear, all of this stuff for the feds, not for the other police. I guess the feds are not the racist ones. It's the local cops who need to be defunded because they're the racist ones. We have It's Ed says, I must admit I'm getting aggravated and angry just listening to the amounts you're listening. This is crazy how the government is just dishing out our money. It's a free-for-all. And what are you supposed to say? No, I don't support this money. Oh, so you're an insurrectionist. So you support Donald Trump and his minions wrecking American democracy. I see how that is. No, just kidding. I'll support it. Let's do an investigation. E. Dantes says, I'm actually not surprised that we have not previously turned the Capitol into a bunker. I think that the vast majority in America still act like and expect that people can control themselves and act like a civil society. Where are we headed? Hard military installations for all government building and public spaces. 9/11 attacks did a lot to make our country look like a war zone. Now this is going to push the feel of military zone more everywhere. DC is going to change. Yeah, $1.9 billion of security installations. I think there are still the fences are still up there, right, around the Capitol building. I think last I heard they were. We have I'm Not Gas in the House says, perhaps they expect so much unrest and sieges on the Capitol because they are planning to put the boot on our necks harder than ever before. Yeah, that's an unpleasant thought, isn't it? Gearing up for unpleasant times. Hopefully that's not the case. We have Anki Woe says, I can believe the cost of the Capitol damage being $1.9 billion. You have to chalk it up to the government. Inefficiency, waste, corruption going to that price. My father was a civil engineer in New York working for a suburban county. 1980, the county would pay $50, about $150 in current dollars, for each reflector. Think reflectors on bicycle wheels in the street. Not including the installation of it, times thousands in quantity. It's just corruption. I mean, it's just pure corruption. And you see this all over the place in our government and any bureaucracy, really. Any time where you can shift the skin in the game, when you can sort of take that out, it's ripe for people to just turn that dial up a little bit. Oh, these reflectors, $5. I got to ship them. That's another $5. I got to put a label on them. That's another $5. You know, the envelopes are $5. I had to get off my desk and go put it in the mailbox. That's $10. All right, $50. That sounds right. And they all just, the government pays it because there's no accountability. There's no transparency. That's why we started this channel, because it irritates me. We have Liberty or Death says, I think they think this will be effective for them, but I think it will only serve to make Trump supporters more excited for 24 and let him join President Cleveland in history should he run again. Yeah, I think you might be onto something there, Liberty. Like, a lot of this dogpile is probably going to backfire. You're going to see that the Trump people have more enthusiasm than the other primary candidates. And we got a lot of potential good candidates coming up for the Republicans. I mean, DeSantis is thinking about it. We've got who else? Mike Pence. You know, there's some good names out there that are floating around to go take on Uncle Joe. But if Trump throws his hat in the ring, I mean, he's going to have a very, very, very enthusiastic base of support. Let's just say that. Sharon Quidney says, what do you think they will set up as a loyalty test or loyalty oath to make sure everybody is on board with the current regime? You know, the kind of they have in the totalitarian dictatorships. I wonder if we're going to have police coming into our homes to see if we have pictures of our dear leaders on the wall like they do in North Korea. Joe up there? I hope not. We have LT13 is in the house, says, did she miss the New York Times article? What New York Times article? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what article you're talking about. Not sure what you're talking about there, LT, but that's probably my fault, not yours, because I lost my train of thought. But great questions nonetheless. They all came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and we love your support. Thank you so much for keeping us in your thoughts, in your support of the show. And also, if you happen to know anybody in Arizona who has been charged with a crime, our law firm, the R&R Law Group, we help with that stuff, and we would appreciate a referral. We have our phone numbers right down in the description below. So if you know anybody in Arizona that needs help, we'd be very appreciative of that. Send them our direction. All right, so that's the end of that segment.